If we look off our back porch here at Crossroads Church, we get a pretty good view of what's just over the fence of our backyard, the city of Red Deer. We see the buildings, the landscape. We kind of get a nice overview of this place that most of us know as home. For those of us who live here, the familiar landscape of our city can sometimes go unnoticed as just the way it is, or even just the way it always will be. Yet most of us would agree that not all is well in our city of Red Deer. Over the last few years, we've heard some alarming statistics about our city. Things like fourth most dangerous city in Canada, or well above average in alcoholism and drugs. We've even heard some alarming statistics about human trafficking that takes place every day right here in our own sleepy little city. Here at Crossroads Church, we believe that God has called us to be a blessing to our community. In Jeremiah 29, God commands the Israelites to not only pray for their city, but also to seek its welfare. Over the past year, the leadership at Crossroads Church has begun to ask the question, what would it look like to actually seek the welfare of our city in unprecedented capacity to a point where we might actually change the trajectory of life here in Red Deer? In the Bible, when Jesus looked out across the crowds, he had compassion on the people, a compassion that moved him to not only be concerned about their spiritual well-being, but their physical well-being and their holistic well-being as well. If we were to zoom in on our city, peer over the fence of our backyard, and examine some of the deep-rooted issues that lie at the heart of our city, what do you think we'd find? Some of Red Deer's social issues are actually quite visible once we start looking. If we were to spend a night out on these streets, we'd see things like homelessness, addiction, sex trade, probably a soup kitchen line here or there. These are just some of the kinds of things that are the reality of our city in Red Deer. But there's a lot more behind those issues that aren't quite so visible. For example, what's caused homelessness in Red Deer? Is it possible to actually stop addiction before it starts? Where's the greatest place to engage in the social issues in order to actually make an impact down the road? As a church leadership, these are the types of questions we began asking and wanted to hear from our community, the people who are already engaged in these issues. As we asked, we learned some really interesting facts about our city in Red Deer. Some things that kind of make our cultural dynamic a little bit unique, but also have long-lasting impacts on our social spectrum. We learned that 1 in 4 people in Red Deer have lived in their home for less than a year. This significantly impacts the transience of our population and people's ability to be well connected in Red Deer. We also learned that more than 1 in 5 people in Red Deer haven't graduated from high school. So despite our high-paying industry jobs, this actually has lasting impacts on the shape of our community. But we also learned some really tragic realities about our city. We learned that 30% of our homeless population comes directly from the child and welfare system. We learned that over 11% of the men in Red Deer are physically and/or sexually abusive. And in addition to that, more than 50% of the kids who grow up in those homes grow up to become abusive themselves. We learned that 1 in 4 kids in Red Deer is growing up with only one parental figure in their life. And worse than that, we learned that 1 in 3 women in Red Deer has been sexually abused before the age of 18. When we asked the agencies where amidst the social spectrum they thought it would be best for us to engage, almost unanimously the common denominator was unsupported families in crisis.
In your faith community can be amazing mentors for each other. You know, I think you said there's 2,500 of you. So you imagine how many role models and mentors there are in that number of people who could be mentoring and role modeling for young couples just starting out. How many fantastic parents you have in your faith community who could be, you know, not just showing new couples how to create and sustain a healthy relationship, but how to create and sustain healthy parenting skills and relationships too. It's wonderful, and we're very grateful to have people come in and do bedroom makeovers or, you know, do the bricks and mortar kinds of projects. But what we want is we want people to really engage with us in the work we do with the people that we serve. So to become very much aware of the families we have here, what's going on with them, and together what we figure out is what works for the people that want to become engaged with us. Do they want to be mentors? Do they want to be support people in the community for these families? A lot of these families are marginalized and live in isolation. They need the mentors. But we figure out together, how do we work together to support the people? The bricks and the mortar stuff is, it's valuable, it's important, but the reason we're here and the reason we're having this conversation is about the people that we're really about serving. We need caring, compassionate people in community to work with our families, engage with our families, understand the issues, and work with us around generating the solutions.
We know that we can't invest in every social issue in Red Deer, but as a church, we feel that God is asking us to significantly invest in some issue in order to make a greater impact. After listening to the social agencies in our community and hearing their heart, we feel loud and clear that what they're wanting from us is actually our unprecedented amount of compassion to be poured into the root causes of these social issues. In 2011, the City of Red Deer did an expansive study on our homelessness and poverty. And the results of that study showed that unless we begin pouring our resources and our time and our energy into the issues that are causing these things, we're only going to see a long-term increase in social issues down the road. If we at Crossroads Church actually want to have an impact, a long-term impact on the social issues in our city, it's time that we actually started putting tangibles to the phrase, give life. What does it look like to help families in crisis in hopes to actually impact the next generation and stop some of these things from happening? Where do we start? What do we actually need to do? What do we need to learn together in order to actually be effective in this area? These are the types of questions that we need you to engage with us on. Giving Life isn't a program. It's the heart of Jesus through the hands of His church. We need you to join the conversation about how Crossroads Church can unleash unprecedented amounts of compassion in our community in order to impact the next generation and their families. I have a feeling that we're in for an incredible ride. Will you join us?